Hello, basketball people, we have news. Let's go to more news about the Golden State Warriors. I ask you to give a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, as I am a Warriors fan. The Warriors need to sign a center and still have some options to trade. The best option would be to convince the Utah Jazz to trade the excellent center Walker KESSLER, who would fit perfectly on the Warriors roster. The Warriors have been offered several centers, but the best of them is Walker KESSLER. Walker KESSLER. It's hard to tell what direction the Utah Jazz are trending towards. But trading away John Collins for next to nothing in return, and Colin Sexton for center Jusuf Nurkic, could finally open up a deal for Walker KESSLER. The 7-foot center has been involved in trade discussions since entering the league 3 years ago. He's steadily improved as a rebounder, rim protector, and in pick-and-roll scenarios. With the Jazz repeatedly failing to land a top lottery pick, they might be willing to gamble on a high-upside player like Kuminga. The fit would be seamless for the Warriors. KESSLER would bring elite-level shot blocking, easing the burden on older teammates and helping to lighten Draymond Green's wide-ranging defensive responsibilities. Warriors' perfect move: trade Kuminga for a center. The Warriors are longing for a center, evident in their interest in Horford. Even if they sign the 39-year-old, trading Kuminga for a younger and more versatile center is the perfect offseason move for Golden State. A few teams are vying for young stars and could be willing to part with their center to trade for a player like Kuminga. Robert Williams III. First, and the most logical target, is Robert Williams III from the Portland Trail Blazers. When healthy, he's been an elite rim protector and lob threat. The problem: he hasn't stayed healthy since Boston's NBA Finals run in 2021-22. Williams played 61 games that season. He's played the same number combined over the last 3 years. It's a risk-reward scenario for Golden State. The risk? Betting on Williams' ability to stay healthy. The reward? Landing a 27-year-old who could be a potential long-term fit at center. Nick Claxton. The Nets are another team seemingly with no immediate plan for the future. They have stockpiled draft picks, including 5 first-rounders in the 2025 draft, but there is no urgency to win now. While Nick Claxton is only 26 years old, he's entering his 7th season in the league and has recently become one of the most reliable players in the league, appearing in at least 70 games in each of the last 3 seasons. His impact would be similar to that of Williams and KESSLER, providing the Warriors with a reliable rim protector and pick-and-roll threat. With Stephen Curry and Green facilitating the offense, and a clear need for a rim protector, these are the type of centers who could strengthen the Warriors' chances in the Western Conference. Warriors can sign former Jimmy Butler teammate who just played in the NBA Finals. From rotation minutes in the finals to without a contract. Al Horford might be the most notable center linked to the Golden State Warriors in recent weeks, but he isn't the only veteran stretch 5 that remains available in free agency. Just over a month after playing legitimate rotation minutes for the Indiana Pacers in the NBA Finals, Thomas Bryant remains an unrestricted free agent with no real prominent speculation on where he could end up. Thomas Bryant and Jimmy Butler were teammates at the Miami Heat. Before he was traded to the Pacers in December, Bryant had spent the previous 18 months with the Miami Heat as a teammate of now Warrior star Jimmy Butler. Bryant played 48 games with the Heat, including 39 with Butler, in which the franchise had a productive 25-14 record. No one assisted more on Bryant's made field goals than Butler did during the 2023-24 season, so there's an element of familiarity there if Golden State were to show interest in the 27-year-old should the Horford deal fall over or otherwise. Bryant was a savior of sorts for the Pacers last season after usual backups Isaiah Jackson and former Warrior James Wiseman suffered devastating torn Achilles injuries, leaving the franchise without center depth behind Miles Turner. Bryant made 56 regular season appearances for Indiana, averaging 6.9 points and 3.9 rebounds on 51.5% shooting from the floor in around 15 minutes per game. That role did diminish to just over 8 minutes per game during the playoffs, but the 6 feet 10 inches big man did have some good moments, which included going for 11 points on 3 of 4 3-point shooting in the closeout Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Finals against the New York Knicks. Known for his ability to stretch the floor as a 34.6% career 3-point shooter, Bryant wound up drilling 50%, 9 of 18, of his attempts from beyond the arc during Indiana's playoff run, where they agonizingly fell short in Game 7 against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Despite his impact and the fact Turner stunningly departed for the Milwaukee Bucks in free agency, the Pacers have made it quite clear that they have little interest in bringing Bryant back. In recent weeks, Indiana has picked up the team option on Tony Bradley's contract, re-signed Jackson, brought Wiseman back on a new deal after trading him in February, and traded for an alternative stretch 5 in Jay Huff. It's unlikely that the Warriors end up pursuing Bryant, especially if they ultimately land Horford, but he's at least a name to monitor after being mentioned as an available target by Joseph Dicus of the Mercury News on Tuesday. Golden State Warriors predicted to land $70 million sharpshooter in Jonathan Kuminga trade. The Golden State Warriors have had an underwhelming offseason thus far, and the main headline surrounding the franchise remains the future of young forward Jonathan Kuminga. Kuminga remains a restricted free agent, and after falling out of Steve Kerr's rotation last season, his role entering next season is up in the air. Due to this, many believe that Kuminga's time in Golden State is set to come to an end this offseason, but the young forward is still deciding on what his next move will be, which will also be reliant on the Warriors due to them likely having to move him in a sign-and-trade deal. Golden State Warriors stars Steph Curry and Jonathan Kuminga. Neville E. Gardemain Images. Neville E. and period. Gardemain Images. With Kuminga's time in Golden State likely nearing an end, Sports Illustrated's Jackson Caudell and Rohan Raman recently came up with a 3-team mock trade that would send Kuminga to the Phoenix Suns. In the trade, the Suns would receive Kuminga and Moses from the Warriors, and they would send Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, and an unprotected 2032 first-round pick to Golden State. The Atlanta Hawks are the third team in this mock trade, and they would acquire Nick Richards from Phoenix. This would be an interesting move for the Warriors, as they would not only be moving on from a young player in Kuminga, but Moses Moody as well. Despite this, adding a sharpshooting guard in Grayson Allen, who also excels on the defensive end, could be a massive boost that the Warriors need. December 15, 2023, Phoenix, Arizona, USA. New York Knicks guard Jalen Brunson, 11, drives on Phoenix Suns guard Grayson Allen, 8, in the second half at Footprint Center. Mandatory credit, Rick Scuderia. Main images. Copyright Rick Scuderia. Main images and #169. Rick Scuderia. Main images. O'Neal would also give the Warriors a solid scorer and defender at the forward position that would allow them to upgrade their bench. Warriors signing Jonathan Kuminga could mean disaster for another young forward. One young player could specifically be impacted by JK's future. If you look at many projected 10-man rotations that fans and analysts propose for the Golden State Warriors on social media, few will include young forward Gue Santos as part of the mix. That's somewhat surprising given the trust that Santos earned from Steve Kerr at times last season, but is also the reality of a veteran team looking to push toward another deep playoff run. That's not to say that Santos couldn't push himself into different lineups, particularly depending on what happens in the ongoing saga of Jonathan Kuminga's restricted free agency. Gue Santos could be heavily impacted by Jonathan Kuminga's outcome. If there's one player who should be interested in the outcome of this Kuminga situation, it's Santos, as a fellow young forward whose role and minutes could be affected heading into next season. While many may have Santos out of the projected rotation, he's also one of only 2 players on the current roster that stands 6 feet 7 inches or 6 feet 8 inches that can provide legitimate size at either forward positions. Jimmy Butler is the other, while Moses Moody and Draymond Green are slightly smaller at 6 feet 5 inches and 6 feet 6 inches respectively. Kuminga, of course, has unique athleticism and is also 6 feet 7 inches. It's one of the arguments as to why Golden State should re-sign him, particularly given Butler and Green are both 35 and could deal with injuries, or at the very least periods of rest, next season. If Kuminga does depart in a sign-and-trade and the Warriors don't get back another capable 6'6" forward, then that could really open up a rotation hole that Santos could easily jump into with an impressive training camp and preseason. On the other hand though, Kuminga coming back could deal a disastrous blow to the Brazilians' hopes of an early rotation role. It's hard to see how he'd push past Butler, Green, Moody and Kuminga for minutes, especially when Golden State will be motivated to showcase the latter for a potential trade once eligible. It does appear like the Warriors are still more likely to re-sign Kuminga than not, simply because they've set an asking price that opposing teams aren't willing to match. Buzz around a potential move to the Sacramento Kings has died down, while Dwayne Rankin of the Arizona Republic reported on Monday that the Phoenix Suns have interest in Kuminga, but are unlikely to land him because they lack the draft capital and assets. The Chicago Bulls have re-emerged as a potential suitor after reports that Kuminga's camp had angled towards getting him to the Windy City, but that situation is complicated by the fact they're dealing with their own restricted free agent in Josh Giddey. If Kuminga does ultimately re-sign with the Warriors, it could place Santos in a precarious position as he enters an expiring contract that doesn't become fully guaranteed until January 10. Moses Moody explains how his hand injury limited him late last season. Rounding up all Warriors and NBA-related news for Tuesday, July 22. Golden State Warriors guard Moses Moody revealed what it was like to play through a torn UCL in his right hand during the end of last season. In an appearance on 95.7 The Game, Moody said he didn't initially know the severity of the injury, but the pain was constant and affected everything he did on the court. "It was really tough," Moody said. "I didn't know it was torn at that point, but I couldn't really use it and it hurt to catch the ball, to dribble the ball, all of that type of stuff." Despite the discomfort, Moody chose not to use the injury as an excuse. "I could play around it," he continued. "I'd make it a point to say, like if I'm going to play, then I'm not going to say, okay, every time I mess up it's because my hand hurt. Like if that's the case, then you shouldn't play." The 23-year-old guard played in 74 games last season and found his stride once he began receiving consistent minutes in the rotation. According to NBC Sports Bay Area's Monty Poole, Moody shot 48.3% from the field and 40% from three during his first 16 games as a starter. However, the injury, which Moody says occurred during a March matchup against the Milwaukee Bucks, led to a noticeable dip in production, most evident during the playoffs, where he shot just 35% from the field and 33.3% from beyond the arc across 12 postseason games. While his performance after the injury may have been disappointing, last season still gave a glimpse of how a fully healthy Moody could help fuel the Warriors' championship aspirations next season. For more on this and other news around the NBA, here is our latest news roundup for Tuesday, July 22.